This is a big one. Temptation. Everything that I learned about temptation before was that temptation is a bad thing, but it's a good thing. How could it possibly be a good thing? Temptation is a dress rehearsal for a negative karmic event. That means that you see what it is that a frightened part of your personality is planning to do in detail, and you see it before you do it. Temptation is a gift from the gracious universe that allows you to see something that a frightened part of your personality is intending to do and will do unless you choose otherwise. Don't think that it's not coming from you. Don't think that it's not real and going to take you into painful, painful places of your own creation. Ask that you be shown this temptation clearly so that you can choose otherwise. Today I have one of many of the most dramatic, amazing, interesting, and empowering things to talk about. And it's temptation. I was never surprised more by anything. Well, no, that's not true. So much has come into my consciousness that surprises me entirely that I'm never sure how I'm going to be able to express, and that I have used to change my life so much that I've undergone a metamorphosis. But this is one of them. This is a big one. Temptation. Now, as you know, because I've mentioned it before, I'm not a religious person. I'm not Christian for sure, but I've lived in this Christian country for a long time, and so by osmosis, I know a lot about it. I know that the devil is a bad thing, or guy, or presence, or whatever the devil is, and it doesn't mean me good. It means me harm. It is a malevolent consciousness, whatever the devil is. I don't know if it's got horns and hooves or all of that stuff, but it's not a good thing in my life. That I learned by. I also learned that there is a beautiful prayer that I thought was beautiful for a long time until I began to realize that it's got some inaccuracies in it. Lead me not into temptation, but deliver me from evil. Well, even growing up in a Jewish family, although I'm not Jewish either, and even studying Buddhism, but I'm not a Buddhist, and even falling in love with the Bhagavad Gita in Hinduism, although I'm not a Hindu, I still thought that was a pretty interesting thing to pray for. Deliver me from temptation. No. You get the idea. Temptation, evil, they're wrapped up together, and none of them are any good for you. So when I started to learn about temptation, I was genuinely amazed to learn that temptation is a dress rehearsal for a negative karmic event. That means that you see in your experience what it is that a frightened part of your personality is planning to do in detail. And you see it before you do it. Temptation is a gift. It is a gift from the gracious universe that allows you to see something that a frightened part of your personality is intending to do and will do unless you choose otherwise. And if it does, you will experience the consequences. In other words, everything that I learned about temptation before I learned about this was that temptation is a bad thing, but it's a good thing. How could it possibly be a good thing? It draws negativity from your consciousness and brings it into your awareness so that you can act on it, so that you can prevent yourself acting as a frightened part of your personality from doing something that will now not just be in your thoughts, in your imagination, in your vision, but will actually spill out of your energy sphere and into the energy sphere of others. That is the moment that karma is created. That is the moment that a potential reality drops into being as your reality, and it's real. And the consequences that you've created for yourself are real. Now, this temptation is not just the handiwork, you might say, of a frightened part of your personality. It's a masterpiece. It is detailed in every way. We usually think of temptations, or I did, in terms of major moral violations like murder, embezzlement, adultery. But all of these have in common that if you act on them, you will create painful consequences for yourself. And since you are multisensory now, you are not confined to the five senses, to the perceptions of the five senses as the old consciousness is. You know that you have the ability to choose between a loving part and a frightened part of your personality before you act, before you speak, anytime if you choose. You can use your emotional awareness to show you when fear is active in you and when love is active in you. And when fear is active in you and you act on it, you create painful and destructive consequences. And when love is active in you and you choose to act on it, you create constructive, beneficial, blissful consequences. A temptation is showing you an exquisite masterpiece of a frightened part of your personality. Suppose that you're addicted to sex, or suppose that you're not. Suppose that you're just so insecure that you see someone and you're drawn irresistibly, and you think, this is my soulmate. This is made in heaven. This is the person I should have been with. This is who I need to be with. And if you're a man, it'll be a beautiful woman or a beautiful man, depending upon your orientation. And if you're a woman, the opposite. You can tell that this is the creation of a frightened part of your personality with your emotional awareness. Because when you put your attention in your energy processing centers, such as your throat and your chest and your solar plexus, these are chakras, called chakras in the East, you will always find painful physical sensations. Really, physical sensations. Like, I think two of the most painful physical sensations I've had, now I've had some good ones, but one of them was when I was young, I was hammering a nail into a board, and I missed the nail and I hit my thumb. Oh, I can't tell you, that's pain. And if you ever drop something on your big toe, like a water bottle, that's pain. That's the kind of physical sensation you can experience and will experience in your energy processing centers once you become aware of your emotions somatically in terms of your body. I am calling this thing temptation a dress rehearsal for a negative karmic event. I've been in a few stage productions. I used to love them when I was in college. Actually, I was only in one, and I loved that one. And a dress rehearsal is the last step in the production that you're involved in. Everything is just the way it's going to be on opening night, which is the next night. You're in costume. You're not in blue jeans anymore. You're in Elizabethan costume, or wherever it is that your time period for your production is. It's all been blocked out. You know your moves. You know your lines. You know who's going to appear and who's going to disappear from the stage. Everything is perfect. This is it. It can't get any better. You're ready for the big opening. And when the big opening comes, the theater doors are thrown open, and in comes the public, and they fill the seats, and now you're in production. This is the real deal. You are having an affair. You're having sex with that person. You're embezzling that money. It's not a vision anymore. You're doing it, and you are creating consequences for yourself. And you can avoid all of those consequences by paying attention to the temptation. So can you see now how beneficial temptation is to you? Let's get back to that prayer. Deliver me from temptation. Deliver me from what? The vision of the frightened part of my personality? This dramatic change in the way we understand temptation shifts temptation not only from a bad thing to a good thing, it shifts responsibility for doing something about it, not in changing the world, but in changing yourself. Now you're responsible for not taking this production to opening night. You are the only one that can make that choice. It's your responsibility. Now let's look at the second part of that prayer. Lead me not into evil. I used to think that was a good idea too. I mean, I don't want to be led into evil. I wasn't sure exactly what evil is, but I'm sure the people in it are dressed in black and they don't have anything good for anybody else in mind. And they're focused on destructive, painful things. But the more my consciousness expanded into different perceptions of these very same things, the more surprised I was. There isn't any such thing as evil. Let me say that again because I'm sure it sounds unbelievable. There is not anything such as evil. Evil is not a thing. It's not an existence. It is not a presence. Evil is an absence. It is an absence of love. That's another way of saying it is an absence of light. And where there is an absence, there is a darkness, and that darkness itself maneuvers. That is evil. But what can you do about evil? Can you lock it up? Give it a 20-year sentence? Excommunicate it? Close its credit cards? What can you do about evil? There's nothing you can do about an absence. How can you do anything to an absence? How can you punish an absence? The only thing that you can do about an absence is to give it a presence that is different in every way. The opposite of darkness is light, and the opposite of fear is love. Bring a presence where you see evil in the world. There's a downside, you might say, to not doing that, and I'm violating my own wisdom by saying there's a downside. There's a downside to nothing in this world. Nothing. Because you can make decisions that create painful consequences, but you cannot make a mistake. You cannot make a bad decision. You can make a decision that is destructive, but there is always learning in it, even though it's unconscious. So whatever you choose, it will serve, the consequences you create will serve your spiritual growth. But why create consequences that are painful and that will make your journey longer and more difficult when you can create with love, create blissful, healthy, constructive consequences, and your journey becomes less complicated, much more direct, and more joyful? Well, that's what you do when you choose love. And choosing love, choosing to bring the presence, the energy of love, of light. These are with capital L. Capital L. Not little love like, oh, I love you, dear. I mean love. Love that is the universe. Love that is who we are. The love that is everything. The love that you are moving toward as you create authentic power in the Earth School. The love that you are moving toward as you move toward compassion. Whatever modality you're using to grow spiritually, if it's moving you toward awareness, if it's moving you toward responsibility, if it's moving you toward freedom, if it's moving you toward joy and meaning, it's moving you toward love. And that's what creating authentic power does. If you found something that's helping you do that, keep experimenting with it. So now let's get back to evil. You can't punish it. You can't find it even. You can't lock it away. I've been in San Quentin as a visitor, not as a guest. I've been in Los Lunas Penitentiary in New Mexico. There have been a lot of evil deeds done, painful deeds that were enacted by frightened parts of personalities of good people. How can I say that? We are all personalities in the Earth School. We all have frightened and loving parts. The frightened parts are the ones that you imagine: fear-based, resentful, competitive, insecure, entitled, inferior, needing to please. And the loving parts are what you probably see them to be: gratitude, appreciation, caring, contentment, patience, awe of the universe. That is the presence you can bring where there is an absence of light. And if you don't do that, if you try to meet evil with evil, if you try to overcome evil with external power, with fear, you yourself become part of the problem. In other words, when you try to change the darkness with darkness, you enter the darkness. Let me put that even a third way. If you have no compassion for those who have no compassion, what's the difference between you? I think a lot of you are agreeing now in some way. Some part of you is agreeing. But how do you do this? How do you do this? Because frightened parts of your personality do not step aside easily. They are strong, attractive, magnetically attractive. Oh, that person you want sex with is so delicious. Or it may be you don't even care about that person. You just want to use that person, but it's going to be good. And that's what the temptation is showing you. The temptation is showing you what you're going to do with the money that you embezzle. It's right and it's righteous. That's the nature of every frightened part of your personality. And in order to love, in order to become the presence that will eliminate the absence that is evil, you must become a loving person. But here's the thing. You are a loving person. Not the frightened parts of your personality, but you, who you are. You are a powerful and creative, compassionate, and loving spirit that is incarnate, that is in the Earth School voluntarily, that has a personality, male, female, big, little, intellectual, athletic, all of those dualities that are everywhere in the Earth School. And at the same time, and this is the heart of the new consciousness, you know that you are a soul. You have, in other words, a part of your personality that is immortal. And authentic power is aligning your personality with your free will, with that part of your personality that is immortal. Now, that sounds abstract. Look at it this way. Your soul has these intentions: harmony, cooperation, sharing, and reverence for life. And when you align yourself with those intentions of your soul, you create authentic power. You become the presence. That is the remedy for the absence that is evil. So we can look at this again. This whole dynamic of temptation. Help me not to resist temptation. I think this is part of the Bible that I remember too. Resist you're not evil. To me, that doesn't mean, go ahead, do it. It doesn't mean don't resist the action that is calling you to do. It means don't resist experiencing it. Don't think that it's not coming from you. Don't think that it's not real and going to take you into painful, painful places of your own creation, which is not a damnation, not a punishment, and not a hell, but a way that you have chosen to learn in the Earth Scroll. Ask that you be shown this temptation clearly, in detail, so that you can choose otherwise. And that is a responsible choice, a choice that creates consequences for which you are willing to assume responsibility. If you're enjoying anything you're hearing on this podcast, subscribe to it. Now, what do I mean by enjoy? Do I mean, is it entertaining for you? Does it make you laugh? Does it make you forget your worries? That's not what I mean. I mean, do you resonate with anything that I say as relevant, profound, and pertinent for you, not for the world, for you? Something that you can use, something that you can experiment with in your life. If you do, if you resonate, then subscribe, because there's more where this comes from. It comes from the universe, as do you. I have a soul step for you to practice. I want you to take out your little journal that you got in your back jean pocket and the little pen or pencil that goes with it. And I want you this week to write down every time a thought comes to you that you recognize as a temptation. Or if you're watching TV or you're listening to a song and it reminds you of temptation, write it down. Write it down. And if you relate to it, find the frightened part of your personality that you think might be showing that to you, because it is showing it to you. And then look at what your life would be like if you do not follow that temptation. If you say no to that frightened part of your personality while you're experiencing it, while you're experiencing its desires, that is creating authentic power. While you're experiencing a frightened part of your personality, its painful physical sensations and its judgmental, comparative thoughts, in that moment, use your free will to move your attention into a loving part of your personality, a time when you are loved and loving, and then choose to act from that part of your personality while you're experiencing the frightened part of your personality. You might say, while you're experiencing the temptation. That's the creation of authentic power. It requires commitment. It requires courage. It requires compassion and conscious communications and actions. But it's what you were born to do. You were born to love. And I said earlier, you are love. It's the frightened parts of your personality alone that prevent you from experiencing that love. And that means from experiencing yourself. As you create authentic power, you move yourself toward who you are until you finally get there. And it's amazing. You are amazing. You, not the frightened parts of your personality. Consider the loving parts of your personality as who you actually are, because they are the experiences and the energy of your soul. And as you align yourself with them, you create real power, authentic power. I'm looking forward to being with you again. I'm Gary Zukov.